Hello, I'm Garner Mayor Ronnie Williams. We're here for another episode of the show that we call Great People in Garner. I'm very honored today to be in the presence of Chuck Killian. He's a Garner volunteer activist and a very busy person in Garner. Welcome to the show, Chuck.
Good to be with you, Mayor.
Tell us about your career. You are a retired pastor. Tell us about your career, and you're also a retired professor. But once a professor, always a professor.
That's true. That's true. When I was a little boy, I had this inner drive to grow up to be a preacher.
Burning passion.
Oh, burning passion. The little church we went to, I loved the way they preached and their dynamism and their excitement and enthusiasm. And I said, you know, I can do that. I buried all the cats and dogs in Tyner that died. Oh, we did. We had a good time. So everybody said, Charlie's going to be a preacher. My first sermon, you might be interested in knowing this, my first sermon, and I don't recall it, although my Aunt Opal has a picture of me standing on a hay wagon preaching to her cows. And
Were they listening to you?
Well,
as far as you know.
She said, Charlie, shortly before she died, she said, I remember your sermon. No, I don't remember. She's got a picture of it, so I don't remember it. But she said, you stood up on that wagon, the cows are munching hay around the edge of the wagon, and you said, you cows better start giving more milk or you're all going to hell. And she said that milk production increased substantially following that sermon, so I knew that that's where I was going to go. So early in my life, there was church was a way of life. Mother's philosophy was you go to church twice on Sunday and once in the middle of the week. Any questions? And so I was brought up in the church. I was always fascinated by the preaching end of it. And so that became something, a seed that was sown in the soil of my soul. And I went to college, studied religion, and then went to seminary. And all of the time in the background was I'm going to be a pastor somewhere. And I served several pastorates before I finished my doctoral work at Indiana University in speech and theater, and went to teach at Asbury Seminary and taught there for 40 years. In fact, I'm still teaching there, classes online. And so for 45 years, I've been teaching preaching and drama and storytelling. And in the process, I pastored churches while I was also professor. And then I retired from Asbury Seminary in 2002 and moved to Western North Carolina, a little town called Mayodan, where I served for 4 years there because I wanted to get closer to my grandkids.
You were gradually making your way back.
Oh, yes, right. Gotcha. Yep. And following that experience of 4 years, I wanted to get still closer to the grandkids. One was in Goldsboro and the other was in Wake Forest. And so I looked at the map and I said to Jane, we're going to move to Garner. And no sooner had I gotten here, fell in love with the place, that I started attending the Garner United Methodist Church, and pretty soon they asked me if I'd serve on the staff as an unpaid volunteer, and I did that for 3 years. And then the bishop asked me to take this church over to Ebenezer back last summer really. So I'll be there to the end of June, and then I'm going to hang it up, I think, for the most part.
But since your official retirement, interim emeritus, you've served in that capacity?
Yeah, interim pastor, yeah.
All right, now let's talk about Professor Chuck.
I taught preaching and drama and storytelling at seminary. I've always been fascinated with storytelling, not really knowing much about it. And the whole genre of storytelling, I think, is one of the most humanizing components in learning. If I can get people to tell a story or to tell me a story, it has a way of engaging you. It has a way of putting you on the stage. It has a way of opening you up, as opposed to some just propositional statements about some theology or something. I was more interested in tell me a story. My girls grew up every night before they go to bed. They would say, Daddy, tell us a story. Now, I wish I had a tape recorder of those stories, but I would make them up and they would listen, and pretty soon, halfway through the story, they were ready to go to sleep. So telling a story. And so my whole philosophy of teaching, preaching, is that Jesus, the master storyteller, modeled for us how do you get something said that will be easily heard, understood, and retention and activization towards ministry.
So you mentioned the fact you came back to this area to be closer to the kids, and you briefly mentioned the kids. 2 girls?
2 girls,
Tell us about what they do.
Joy and Elaine. Joy is a paralegal. She works in Charleston, South Carolina now. My other daughter, Elaine, got a master's in education. She taught public school for a while, but she decided to be a stay-at-home mom and help the children. She's homeschooling now. And so I have 4 wonderful grandchildren. I got a picture if you want to see them, but I won't show it to you.
We'll watch them. We'll look at them after the interview. Like you ended up in Garner, and you have been quite involved. But your first impression of Garner, you sort of alluded to that, but it did not run you away. It coerced you into staying.
We had a friend who was a realtor, and so she showed us around in Fuqua, Varina, and Cary, and a few other places. We spent 3 or 4 days down here. But then when we came to Garner, there was just something, not mysterious, but something magical that,
The people.
oh, well, yeah. Yeah, the people I met and we looked at the structure of the city, and so we got everything we'd ever need. We don't have to go to Raleigh, even though it's easy to do that, and we appreciate going up there from time to time. But everything we needed, I said, we're going to find right here in Garner. I wasn't here very long, Mayor, but what you had gotten wind of me or somehow, and it was following the ConAgra explosion, and there was a prayer meeting. You gave me a call, and we formed that thing rather quickly.
And you responded.
I responded, and I really appreciate that.
Well, that sort of got you introduced to some other people too.
Yeah, and that whole thing, getting introduced to the people, my first entree into an organization was Rotary, because I came here as a Rotarian. Rotary is the largest civic organization in the world, 1.2 million members in over 200 countries. And what I love so much about Rotary, and I'm sure other civic clubs are equally endowed as well, like Rotary, was the sense of family. Your service is beyond yourself. You get involved in the community. And so even with our small club of 23 members, Garner Midday Rotary, we raised money for the last several years for scholarships. We give over $10,000 in scholarships. And we spend about $15,000 to $18,000 on the backpack program that is designated not just for the poor, but specifically for those who have been designated by social services as homeless.
And you just had a fundraiser.
Had a fundraiser in November, and we raised $32,000. And that'll go towards scholarships and underwrite the cost of the backpack program.
But coming to Garner, you had a choice. You've sort of alluded to that. You could have joined or wanted to be a part of several civic clubs. Why Rotary? Did you get invited to a meeting?
Yes, I was a Rotarian before I came here, so I was already built in. When I was pastoring in Mayadan, I became a Rotarian, and I was fascinated then by its story, by its impact on the community. And so when I came here, I just found there were 2 clubs, a morning and a midday. So I started at the midday. Doug Ball was the president at the time. And when I went there, it was just like my first encounter with the Rotarians. They all wanted to meet me. They even had me my first day, could stand up and give us 5 minutes about who, what, when, and where. I felt at home. So if you were asking me about my impression of Garner, I have to use the word home. Home is the word you use to suggest a place that's safe, where you're known and you can be known, and you are engaged by people who are interested in their community and in the school system. So home is a kind of a pastoral word, a word of peace. So I really love Garner.
You've already answered the next question, but your first impression proved to be your remaining impression. In other words, once you got involved in Garner, your first impression was as good as you thought it would be.
Well, my first impression got substantiated and exampled in people like you and others, several of the councilmen, and the whole environment in Garner, to me, is one that while we're growing and we have issues we have to deal with, they're being dealt with, and I'm comfortable being a citizen of this town.
Okay, you're a part of the Garner Educational Foundation.
Yes,
Tell us
sir.
about your involvement with education and your work through the Educational Foundation.
Well, I've always been in education, and anything that we can do for children, for our youth, I'm there. That's why I serve on the PAL board, Police Activity and Activities League, because they're involved in at-risk children. And so in Garner, there's that sense of, we use the phrase "a great place to be." It's a good motto. It's a good statement to make about it. It's a good place to be, and it's a good place to become a better citizen. I think that people are involved in the community life here, and I'm pleased with that aspect of life. We have a political arena, we have a spiritual arena, we have a social arena. We all have our families and that sort of thing. It all comes together to saying, it's just good.
How about the schools? You got opinion?
Well, Ralph Smith encouraged me to get involved in the Garner Educational Foundation, and I joined that, and it wasn't very long until they put me on to be the president. So I'm now serving as the president of the Garner Educational Foundation. We're involved in so many wonderful things. In fact, a week from this coming Saturday, we're having the annual Storytelling Festival, where some of the noted storytellers will come. You'll be there, and you're always gracious to attend those events. Who have been noted storytellers to come here. They'll work with the school children. And then during that 2-day session, there'll be times for even the children to come with their stories and to tell stories. To me, that's one of the favorite things. Another thing is the Cook for Books, where we'll raise $18,000-$20,000 for scholarships for the children. We're now working on developing a kind of a grant that we'll make available to teachers or to a school for a project, and we're working now with Drew, Principal Drew Cook at Garnet Magnet High School, who just recently won an incredible award, one of 10 principals in America who got so honored. So we have a great school system, and we want to do all that we can to work for the children. We're here for them. They're here for us to bless them and to help them and to assist them. And I think that's happening through the Garner Educational Foundation. We also raise money for technology, for teachers to go to seminars and workshops. Garner Education Foundation is a wonderful place, wonderful organization within our community that's helping.
Okay, back in June, we were designated an All-America City. What do you think fulfills the calling of the All-America? What makes us an All-America City, based on what you know?
Well, I have a very limited knowledge about that, but I tell you what, when I saw all the various networks of people doing various things in preparation for that, and the amount of work and the cost and the commitment that had to be made by the town to say, we believe that we can achieve this award, but we have to have the proof. It's got to be that's got to be the proof of our existence. Do we have the goods here? And then when I saw the program and talked to various people who were involved in this, it was absolutely a high-class showcase of an all-American city, wherever it is. But Garner did its work. It knew what it had to do. And not only was it just well orchestrated, the content of it, the variety of people, the ethnicity, the whole gamut of here's a community that cares for its people. That to me was what was loud and clear.
I recently saw an interview that WRAL conducted at Angie's Restaurant. You were in the crowd and you did a little interview, but The things that you see at Angie's restaurant are the things that you're talking about,
Exactly.
which exemplifies Garner.
Yeah, exactly. When I walked in that morning, I didn't know what was going on. In fact, I just came in the door. Angie's halfway across the room, and all I heard was, "Mr. Chuck, he'll talk." She was telling the lady from WRAL that I would talk, and so I sat down and chatted. Yeah, what goes on at Angie's is typical of the feeling and the sense that you get of, again, home. She's almost an icon. She has taken that environment, brought in people as her employees, and every one of them has a spontaneous, like, you're the greatest thing that's happened today for you coming in there. Although they say that to everybody, and you think you're kind of singled out. But it means a lot to somebody who's going to go have something to eat, that you're not there feeling like you're interrupting somebody's responsibility. They're as glad servers and good-hearted people. And Angie got an award from the Martin Luther King.
We're presenting the plaque tonight.
You're presenting that tonight. Well, that is well deserved. And we at Rotary gave her a plaque too, an honor for her helping the marginalized and the forgotten ones in our community.
Chuck, as a part of the Garner Educational Foundation, they do what we call SCORE reading in the school. You're a participant in that?
Yes, I am. In fact, Garner Midday Rotary and the Garner United Methodist Church started that. It's called Church and Communities Organized for Reading. And it targets the second graders. We were told that in the second grade, reading is a critical time in a pupil's life of learning, grasping reading and its impact. And so 30 minutes a week. This year I'm going to be out at East Garner Elementary. I'll go over there at 1 o'clock, and for 1:30, the two of us.
And you're paired up with a student?
I'm paired up with a student. And you can either serve as a mentor, maybe have a meal with them, occasionally lunch, but basically have them read and you read, and I always throw in stories, and I have a ball. It's one of the, in fact, thanks for asking, that is one of the things that gives me the most pleasure of anything I do, even pastoring a church. I love that. That's in my bloodstream. But working with these children, when I read to them or tell them a story and watch their wide-eyedness and their interest, or the next time when I would show up, they would say, "Tell me the story about that man again, or about the hard word." Or I said, "Well, you tell it to me." And you'd be surprised how well, by hearing a story, it gets
Instilled
in the mind.
And they want to hear it again?
Yeah, want to hear it again. So we have about 50 volunteers in 4 or 5 schools, once a week, 30 minutes. We are impacting children. At the end of the year, they get a dictionary from the foundation, and so SCORE is a very good program. Anybody out there who's hearing this would like to be involved, anybody can do it. The background check, and then you'll be assigned to a school. To me, it's one of the better things that I think the foundation does.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the schools. There's perceptions about Garner schools, and they've always been a point of interest with the Garner citizens. And there's some negative stuff out there and some very positive stuff. But overall, how do you think we're doing in terms of educating our kids in Garner with the schools?
Well, first of all, what I'm starting to learn more about is that our schools do a fantastic job, an incredible piece of work, in light of the fact that budgetary constraints have been so tough on the income of our teachers. I was told by a member that 6 or 7 years there hasn't been much of a pay raise for our teachers, but they'll be back next year. Or some will leave maybe because of that, but most people have stuck with it. And I'm really impressed with the core, a core of teachers who are committed to teaching our boys and girls. And I don't hear anybody complaining grousing. Of course there are issues. There always will be. And I don't know what they are, but we're trying to address whatever comes down our way to help. How can we make this to work better, to be more clear, to raise resources, to let you know, teachers, that we help. So we give an appreciation, our foundation gives an appreciation dinner or an occasion where awards are given, and we're involved in that. And so my impression of the overall school situation is when we've got people like Drew Cook as the principal and the other principals who labor under significant odds and to come up with the kind of work that they do, in spite of sometimes the scores come out and they don't look like what everybody would like. Not all the factors are always considered. There are other things other than just a particular score on a particular area. What's the humanizing impact of the teacher's role, as opposed to, is it there just to raise scores? We're teaching for the exam, or what? As opposed to, I'm dealing with lives. I'm dealing with people's at significant points in their journey where the light will go on. One thing Drew is working on now is to have a summer camp for at-risk students, and he is convinced that a summer camp of doing some elective work in various subjects, that can be tracked so that increased graduation rates will increase because of spending this extra time, these extra resources, these teachers being involved in this, even for 25 students. If 25 students will stay in school and graduate because of this particular program, it's well worth it. That you don't hear much about. You hear about the problems. You hear about the dissonance. And so I may, if asked to have some input somewhere, I probably could. But my whole philosophy is it's not broken.
Don't need fixing.
It doesn't need fixing. It does need cared for and watched over and given proper leadership and proper compensation. I'm for salaries being raised significantly for our teachers. But that's a tax issue. And I know I'd probably get shot for that.
Every April, Garner puts forth its cancer Relay for Life.
Relay for Life.
I always see you there.
I'm always there.
How does that make you feel being involved in that?
Well, I have a live experience. I have a daughter, had a double mastectomy, and she's a cancer survivor in her 4th or 5th year. But more than that, it touches everybody's life. Cancer does not leave any family untouched. You all know of someone, family member, neighbor, whatever. It's impactful. And so for the relay, for what we do here, as I understand, we're one of the largest contributors in the whole Wake County area.
Garner does more, I think it's told, Garner does more than maybe Apex and Riley put together.
Well, yeah, and our church, Garner United Methodist, $30,000 to $35,000 a year. So to me, that is another one of those
community event.
Community event that brings us together, and hundreds, thousands will be out there for Relay for Life, and we're looking for down the road, so that this scourge that has touched so many lives can be eradicated and alleviated.
Chuck, we mentioned briefly the PAL program, sort of through the police department. You're involved in that?
Yeah. PAAL.
Talk about the benefits.
The Police Activities and Athletic League. They're organized. It's a national organization. It's not just something unique to Garner. It's a national organization, and so we belong to the national organization of that. And the things that we're involved in is an after-school program at Avery Center, and then the police. What's so unique about this is that they, on their off time, give of their time to go down and mentor, to play basketball, for instructions, for the whole program that we're involved in. We now have something going on in 5 or 6 schools One is called the Little Cadets, those who are interested in maybe becoming a policeman, or go shopping with a policeman. For these at-risk children, rather than fearing the law, to let them see that these are caring people, these officers who give their time and energy to assist children in whatever way they can. We're already seeing results, especially from parents, largely single parents, saying how much they appreciate this impact. There'll be a drive in the fall for school supplies. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars will be raised to make these available to the elementary schools. So yeah, PAL we meet once a month, and there are about 13 or 14 under Chief Zudema, who incidentally, if I may tout him here just right now, there's no other human being in the police work that I know of that compares to him. We are fortunate to have the likes of Chief Zudema as our chief. And so I support him. That's one of the reasons why I'm there in the PAL, because of his leadership. So that's enough.
Our citizens passed a pretty substantial bond referendum. Mm-hmm. People say 5 years from now, once those bonds are put to work, Garner will look differently and be differently. What do you see 5 years down the road, tied to the bond-generated money and the future?
It's quite an ambitious. It's going to change the landscape, not only literally, but the landscape of the environment. And my word I told to Hardin the other day was that passing of that bond was a statement about the character of this town. They could have said, can't do it, it's too much money, don't need it, or whatever the reason might be, is a statement about the character of this town, and that we don't have to take a backseat to anybody. That will put Garner on the map, so to speak, in a way that we do not yet have.
Chuck, it's been my pleasure being with you during this time, and I want to thank you for being here and invite you back. We can do this again if you have more thoughts, but it's been a good interview. You've been a good interviewer, candidate, and I'm just proud that we were able to spend this time together.
Well, that runs both ways, Mayor. Thank you for this opportunity for me to share what little I know with my brief time of being in Garner. I want to be here all the way to the end. How long is that going to be, Mayor?
Well, we won't speculate on that right now. No, nobody can answer that.
Till Jesus comes.
That's right.